Hello and welcome to Fine is a Four-Letter Word. My guest today is Mike Pfister. I'm so eager to talk to you and to hear your story. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Oh, so happy to be here, Lori. Just really excited about being able to just really kind of dive right into this topic and hopefully provide some value to your audience for sure.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's start out with what were the values, like the key values and beliefs that you were raised with that contributed to you becoming who you did?
Yeah, so I mean, I grew up in a pretty conservative home. So I mean, faith was definitely a big component of my upbringing, and so I mean, my parents are still together today, and just really blessed with the family that I grew up in for sure.
Did that have an effect on like what you went on to do after school? Like what led you
Yeah.
to start your adult life the way that you did?
So my journey's been kind of, I guess you can say, part of the norm. I actually don't use the degree that I have. So I've always had a passion for working with kids. I still do that in other avenues. So my degree is actually in education. So now I just look at myself as being an educator of adults.
Yeah.
It comes with its own challenges, but no, I mean, it's definitely been a journey and excited to be where I'm at. And I don't regret the path that I took because I think I learned a lot along the way for sure.
What did you want to be when you were growing up?
Well, I mean, whatever what
Did you?
every little boy wanted to be.
I don't
A
know. I'm a
fighter.
girl. What a,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like obviously, like the
a fireman or an
firefighters.
astronaut?
Yeah, yeah, firefighters, sports star. I mean, all the things that like you see every day. And then as I started going into the uh, high school years, I got really involved in technology, and so first enrolled in college for computer science, but then I realized I didn't want to be stuck in a dark room for, I mean, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. I mean,
Yeah.
not having human interaction. My wife jokes I'm the extroverted extrovert. So when COVID hit, it had me climbing the walls. Uh,
Yeah, I bet.
so yeah, so I mean, yeah, that's kind of the nutshell of kind of where I came, and so got into education after realizing I wanted to work more with people. Graduated with a elementary education degree, taught for a year and a half, realized I didn't have a dual degree in political science to navigate the politics of education,
Oh, geez.
and
Yeah, I've heard that
just
before too. Uh-huh.
realized that I needed to, I wanted to be, I mean, in more control of my income, number one. And number two, just really knowing that I have the people skills to be involved in sales. So it's hard to believe that I'm saying this, but in 2026, it'll be 20 years in my sales career.
Wow, congratulations. That's fantastic because I think you have to have the right, I don't know what the right personality. You don't necessarily have to be an extroverted extrovert to be in sales. You know,
Nope,
I hear that all the time because introverts can make great salespeople because
absolutely.
yeah, but there's a certain type of person that survives that long in sales.
I mean, I think the tactics and learning the nuance of sales, anyone can learn.
Hmm.
But I think the biggest thing that people get scared of when they hear, oh, I could never be in sales, is it's not necessarily that they're not good at it, because sales is just basically listening to someone's problem and finding a solution and making it easily accessible and
Right.
providing the value on the back end. So when it comes to sales, I think the word no and rejection is one of the biggest fear factors for people that are in sales. And anyone that says, "Oh, I would never be good at sales," I'm like, "Well, have you ever asked someone out on a date?" Well, yeah. I mean, have you ever gone on a job interview? Yeah. Well, you're better at sales than you think you are.
Right. Yeah, I think that's true. Like people don't understand what sales is, like you said, They think it's about trying to convince somebody of something that they don't want to do.
Correct. And that's a big misconception for sure.
Yeah, I have a program on networking strategies, like how to feel comfortable and confident walking into networking on in-person networking situations. And it's kind of the same thing. Like people feel like networking is kind of slimy. Like, well, I don't want to have to force people to hear what I do, and I don't know how to tell them it's not about you. It's about like sales, asking questions and being interested in the other person, and how can I serve them? How can I be
Yep.
of service to them? So, yeah. So because the show is called Fine is a 4-letter word, tell me about the time when everything in your life was fine, but not fine.
So I mean, from our initial conversation, Lori, I mean, this is what really got me excited to be able to share this because this is not about me.
Yeah.
Um, I always see my experiences as an opportunity
Mm-hmm.
to give someone else hope.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that you had a very difficult experience and fairly recently. So I'm so honored
Yep.
that you're willing to talk about it, um,
Yeah.
to talk about it here.
Um, so a vast majority of my sales career was in the digital marketing space, close to 15 years of that experience. And so um, I was a client of the current company that I work with now. And so so I used the platform that I sell now for about a year and a couple months. And so at the end of 2021, I was like, it's time to make a change. So dove headlong into this software as a service for a fairly new startup. I've never worked for a startup before. Um, Coming from an industry that I sold into previously, that was a very long sales cycle. It was very relational heavy, typically making pitches to large groups of people. So lots of decision makers, lots of influencers. So I mean, one of my biggest accounts um, at that previous company was, I mean, it took me 18 months just to get a seat at the table,
Mm.
to give you a perspective. And so shifting from that to a fairly shorter sales cycle was a transition for me. So new industry um, and a different mindset in terms of being able to speed up that. So being less relational. I mean, still there's always going to be a component of relational in sales because people don't buy things, they buy from people.
Right.
Um, so that shift, I mean, it took me a little bit of time, but then so about yeah mid-year last year, my wife and I were expecting our fourth, and June, she ended up having a miscarriage.
Mm.
So that took a, I mean, it hits. I mean, nothing can prepare you for
Sure.
that.
I
And
can't even
I mean,
imagine.
people mean well. Well, I mean, you still have three beautiful kids, and it's just like, oh, I mean, it still does not, I mean, take away from that pain
Yeah. Yeah.
of um, having that the anticipation of joy. I kind of relate it to like remembering when you were a kid, and you're sitting on the curb and you're waiting for that parade and you're leaning forward and you're waiting for that to come because you know it's going to come, and then all of a sudden, boom, like no heartbeat and for no apparent reason.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's the hard part of not knowing the why
Yeah.
that this occurred. So obviously, I mean, I'm so blessed that the organization I work with and the leadership that I have, I mean, values family first. So being able to know that I was able to be present with my wife and be present with my family, and to go through that grieving process and to know that things were taken care of. But to that initial question of fine but not fine
Mm-hmm.
is, it ties back to the stigma of miscarriage. Like most people like don't realize that it's 1 in 4 of pregnancies,
Yeah.
and in miscarriage. And so for something that is that common, that still doesn't have the people talking about it because of that stigma. Like it's a personal pain, but at the same time, um, it's very it's something that's just not talked about enough.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and my wife and I both believe that. So, um, I mean, my wife went through. I mean, obviously, grieving for me and going through that process on my end is different than my wife because like the questions that went through her head is, I mean, what could I have done differently?
Yeah.
I mean, was not eating the right things? Was I too stressed? Was I not like what could I have done? And
Mm-hmm.
very well, I mean, could have been, there was nothing that
Right.
could have been done to prevent it. Um, but there's that guilt and shame almost that can
Yeah.
come with that.
Right. And like you said, people are well meaning, but they don't know a lot of times what to say. And I think this is in relation to any death, whether it's miscarriage or somebody who's lived a long life. People say the craziest things
Hmm.
because they don't know what to say. So people
Hmm.
feel uncomfortable around death as a whole.
Yeah.
And I mean, as a, they want to say something, but then they're like, brain kind of shuts off and they just say ridiculous things.
Hmm.
But how do you, counter, like not counter necessarily, but what do you say to somebody who says something like that to you? And for the listeners, take some notes here on what not to say and what to say to people
Yeah.
who are dealing with this kind of experience.
Yeah. So honestly, lots of grace.
Mm.
I mean, respond with grace. I mean, if someone says something that is off-putting or just flat out just insensitive, but understand to exactly what you said, Lori, is they just don't know what to say. So the challenge there is that sometimes you just have to smile
Mm.
and be like, we're getting through this.
Yeah.
Um, and just not sometimes no response is the best response.
Yeah.
Um, because they are, I truly believe that they're coming from a place of care.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, if they say something like, well, I mean, just remember that you have 3 beautiful kids to love on right now. And so, kind of bringing things back to the fine, not fine, I think that a lot of this experience, so is it's okay to talk about these things. It's
Yeah.
okay to be open and vulnerable um, when things, because I mean, from a professional standpoint, I'm a very positive person,
Yeah.
and I don't want to necessarily like have these types of things be a detriment.
Hmm.
Um, but it's okay, like to have that confidant at work that you can just pull aside and say, hey, like I may look like I got things together,
Hmm.
but I'm really struggling here today.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said you had that in your boss, right? And the
And
higher
my
ups up the line.
and my colleagues as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. What what was the best thing that somebody said to you? Or the most comforting thing?
Honestly, it was nothing.
Hmm.
It was the power of presence.
So it wasn't not acknowledging what you said or the information you shared. It was just holding space for you to just be with it.
Yep.
Yeah. That's hard for both sides often because we want to fill silence with words and or something.
So I mean, and this was more important for my wife, just having someone come over and do laundry,
Mm.
or I mean, dropping off a meal and saying, "We're praying for you."
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
What helped you, because we had talked about this in the previous call too. What helped you move forward? I mean, obviously there's a period of mourning,
Hmm.
and there are some practical things that you can do or that you did do to
Hmm.
help you move from that place.
Yeah, so it kind of taught. I mean, it's really because that's not the rest of the story, so to speak. I mean, if I
Okay.
can't remember the guy, I can't remember the guy's name.
Oh yeah. Oh right.
Paul Harvey.
Yes.
Paul. I mean, and this is the rest of the story. So let's kind of jump fast forward. So June kind of regained traction here professionally, and then we got pregnant again.
Mm.
And so, I mean, we both came from larger families. I'm the oldest of four, four boys to boot.
God
Um,
bless your mom.
so exactly right. And if you said that to my mom, like, how did you do it? She's like, I'd rather have four boys than two girls close in age. And I'm like, okay, well, hey, you said it, not me. Um, and my wife's one of four as well. So we really knew that, hey, we weren't done with three. I mean, rewind. I mean, almost 10 years ago, if I someone said, "Hey, Mike, you're gonna have a big family," I would probably like, I don't know about that. Look, remember, maybe it was just I was still too close to coming out of the chaos of four boys,
Yeah.
that I wasn't quite mentally or emotionally or mature enough to be able to do that. But so we got pregnant again, and then so the due date of our first one was going to be December 31st. So then we
Mm.
got pregnant again, and uh, right before, so early December, we had a second miscarriage.
Mm. Wow. That's so difficult.
Yeah. So how I handled the second one was different than how I handled the first, and it was good and bad. Um, I think the second one hit me a lot harder.
Hmm.
And so for me, I actually withdrew more than I, looking back, hindsight 2020 would have wanted to.
Yeah. What do you think that that happened because you hadn't fully processed? I mean, you didn't have hardly enough time to process the full mourning of the first one.
Honestly, I think we were both still we were in a good place.
Okay.
Um, like we had talked about it a lot, and we knew. I mean, my wife's 10 years younger than me, but I'm 43, and it's like, do I really want to be like putting kids through college and trying to retire at the same time? Um,
Come on, join
but
the Gen Xers. We're all doing it.
yeah, I know, right? Um, so I think it was. I mean, I think that yeah, we were definitely prepared to try again. It wasn't a like, oh, we're pregnant again
Yeah.
type scenario. But at the same time, we yeah, like I said, the second one last year really it did hit differently um, around the holidays, but also the compounding of recognizing the time frame
Yeah.
that we would have been
Yeah.
expecting our first,
Right.
and having to deal with the loss of the second.
Right.
So that's kind of where things were last year, and having, I mean, the biggest takeaway that I hope people can really take from this, and not necessarily from this topic, apply this to whatever challenge that you're going through, where you're putting on that brave face, where you're putting on the mask, so to speak, of
Yeah.
fine. Um, whenever I hear the word fine, I always think back to the movie, The Italian Job. Freaked out, insecure, neurotical, and emotional.
Yeah.
Um, and it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you need to ask for the support and help at work that you needed, or did they
Mm-mm.
just kind of give it to you?
They just gave it. And I know not everyone has that type of understanding. I
Yeah.
literally, my director, my direct report, um, he knew we were expecting, and he knew that I was going to be going to the appointments and stuff like that. And so when we found out, like, I called him and he said, "Is everything okay?"
Mm.
Knowing that we had gone through it already, and I said no.
Yeah.
He said, "Don't worry about it."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And for me, being at the end of the year, that was tough because end of year is one of those things that, you're trying to do everything that you can to make your numbers and
Right.
push for those goals, and being a single income family to provide.
Yeah.
But having that support was critical from not only the personal side with our community that we have here, but also from a company side as well. So any business leaders listening to this,
Yeah.
empower your leaders
Yes.
within your organization to have this type of discretion.
That's so important. Now, the company that you were at before, because you were fairly new to this company, do
Mhm.
you think you would have gotten the same support?
Honestly, I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, for my direct report, absolutely. Like, where you say, and where most people are saying right now that people don't leave bad companies, they leave bad leadership.
Right.
I did not have that at my previous organization. My direct boss was just absolutely amazing. Um, so and as an organization, they were a great organization. For me, I just needed a change.
Yeah.
Um, so I can't speak to that directly in terms of what I've been able to take the time off that I did here. I can't speak to
Yeah. What do you think is the how to form this question? What Well, let me ask you this other question because this went through my head as you were talking too. What tools or how old are your kids? The three.
that. 8, 5, and almost 2.
Okay. So how did you empower them to deal with this? Like, how were they affected?
Um, obviously, when it comes to developmentally,
Yeah.
being able to process these types of things, um, that it is, how do I want to put this? A lot of times outbursts and heavy emotions come
Mm-hmm.
out in bad behavior.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and just like you have to show yourself grace, I mean, that type of stuff, especially for kids that can conceptually understand, I'm going to be a big brother, I'm going to be a big sister.
Yeah.
Um, but we talked openly about it when it happened the first time,
Mm-hmm.
and we talked openly about it the second time, and really being able to walk through that together
Uh-huh.
and allowing them to see us,
Yeah.
that we didn't grieve behind closed doors. We didn't deal with the emotions behind closed doors. We did it together
Yeah.
as a family and even as a community when we had family friends over, and when we had friends over that were helping out and the like, to be able to talk through these things.
Yeah.
So
That's so important. I had a previous guest on my show, and she had told the story about an older sister. If I'm remembering correctly, she was the youngest, and she had somebody, her sister was like, her oldest sister was like 10 years older than her. So she was, the older sister was like 19 or something, and when she passed away. And I don't remember I don't think she shared how she passed, but the family completely did not talk about her passing. Like, it was like she never existed. And there were effects on the younger children because Carol had said, it was like she just disappeared, and they didn't let us have any emotions around it. And so I can only think that sharing, like you said, grieving openly, sharing the emotions, letting the kids have their emotions is healthy. And so important for their development.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. We talked about your leaning into gratitude during this time.
Yeah, so I'm a big believer that you will find what you look for. And so that even though a circumstance or a challenge in life, because it happens. We're all going to face trouble. We're all going to face challenges. We're all going to face things that are disappointing or whatever, however you want to put it. And by focusing on trying to find joy in the midst of pain,
Yeah.
like you can and you have to find joy. And it's not to mask or to coat or anything like that. It's about being able to have the emotions you need to have when grieving, when trying to overcome a difficulty, but being able to also have those moments of joy and being grateful for those moments of joy and finding reasons to be thankful and to be grateful. And like my word for this year is restoration. And it's because of the gratitude that I had in those moments of feeling like how can this be reconciled? And so going into 2023, our word as a family is restoration.
That sounds like the perfect word. Are there specific things you're doing to step into that word more?
Well, it really ties back to my faith. And I mean, there's a scripture that is really important to me, and it's kind of twofold. Is that, in this life you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. And so it's knowing that it's going to happen, but take heart. But it goes back to the that having life and having abundantly doesn't always mean prosperity in finances. It doesn't always mean prosperity in relationships. But it's being able to be grateful in the little and be equally as grateful in the much. Because we're all going to have seasons of abundance and we're all going to have seasons of lack. It could be lack in time. It can be lack in communication when it comes to relationships. And it can be lack financially as well. So leaning into that, it has been just really important for us here.
Yeah,
me particularly.
that makes, like, that's just so wise. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so we will need a little editing here because I'm thinking, I'm just taking a minute to process what you said because that was just so, I say profound. It's just really insightful. And a lot of people don't, we're not saying, just to recap, we're not saying don't feel the emotions. You're saying feel the emotions. That's the healthy thing to do. And find the gratitude where you can as well, because it is there. Both, they are not mutually exclusive. That's what I wanted to say.
Nope. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. It sounds like that also would be a good way of putting your definition of success. Is that true?
So success for me is about not so much, I mean, in terms of financial wealth or the things that I have, um, but it ties back to, am I being a good steward
Mm.
with my time, with my talents, and with my resources, whatever that looks like. Um, and I mean, as a family, yes, we do have dreams, we do have goals, we do. I mean, we are, I mean, striving to. I mean, my background on my desktop and even when I'm on Zoom, I love to cook.
Yes.
That is a passion of mine. But I don't want it to be something that I do from a like to do to make
Uh-huh.
money, because then I believe that like I would probably hate to cook that
Right,
way.
right. It
For
loses
at
the
least
joy
for
when,
the people I care
yeah,
about.
when it has an ulterior
Yeah.
motive to it.
Yeah. So like I mean one of our goals is to have an outdoor kitchen and to have I mean we have a nice I mean a nice home and a nice backyard and I still I mean we do with what we have. And we still practice that and have people over and I cook a lot of good food. Um, the the where was my train of thought going? Um,
Off the tracks.
but yeah, I mean, yeah, no, you're absolutely fine. Yeah, I got it back, thankfully. Sometimes when the train leaves the station, it doesn't come
I
back.
know.
Um, but being able to do that, but I mean, being able to, I mean, to have, I mean, even a better place for people to come in and enjoy and have community and fellowship.
Yeah. Yeah. What what would be the last thing like that, obviously you wanted to share this topic and share this difficult story, this difficult experience that you went through, and I am so grateful for your bravery and coming on and talking about it. What else would you want people to hear?
Uh, that's kind of it. Is
Just
just to make
normalize
sure that you
this.
have, yeah, yeah. I mean, and again, it doesn't have to tie to that specific topic of miscarriage, but being able to just be brave when it's not easy
Yeah.
and be vulnerable because you're going to be amazed at the people that come around you that want to lift you up
Yeah.
and have the resources and the ability to do that. And it and if you have someone in your life that's going through a tough time, sometimes all they need is that power of presence
Mm, yeah. The power of
and
presence.
being physically there.
Yeah. Love it. My last question is always,
Sure.
what is the song that you listen to when you need an extra boost of energy? What's your hype song?
So it's not really a hype song, but it's a recentering song.
Mm-hmm.
It's by Brandon Lake, and it's called Gratitude,
Perfect.
and it's just really it's a, I would call it I don't want to say ballad because ballad can have a lot of different terms, um, but it's a very good heart to heart song, that just really helps me focus on what's most important.
Ah, yes. That is that is beautiful. We all need to do that uh, more often than we are, is focusing on what is important. Thank you,
Yeah.
Mike. If people want to continue this conversation with you, where is the best place for them to reach you?
I mean, LinkedIn is always a great place to connect, and I mean, and I'm happy to be an ear
Okay.
um, to anyone that needs just to kind of talk through the difficult season that they're going through. So
Cool. Thank you for that. I will put a link in the show notes to both your song and to your LinkedIn profile. And yeah,
wonderful,
thank you so much for joining me today on Fine is a Four-Letter Word.
Lori. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.